Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. This week's reading vlog is reading fantasy for a week. So I recently picked my TBR blindly again, like I did in March. I did the same thing for April, where I had books wrapped up. I picked a number out of a jar, and whatever that number was the book I unwrapped. I ended up getting 4 fantasy-esque books, so I thought this would be a perfect reading fantasy for a week setup. So that's what I'm gonna do. The first book I'm going to pick up this week is The Heartless Hunter by Kristen Cicarelli. This is a witch hunter witch romance, from what I understand. I've read about 90 pages of this. I picked this up this morning before work and a little bit at lunchtime, and I'm about 90-ish pages in. So I have a little bit of an idea of what's going on. And we have our main character, Rune, who is a witch, and she is the Crimson Moth, which is what the UK name of this book is. It was changed, but there is like a Crimson Moth on the cover. That's her calling card whenever she saves a witch from being killed by the Blood Guard. And then there's this Blood Guard, which is part of this new government's way of getting rid of witches. So they basically hunt witches by getting a tip, and then they go and basically strip them bare and look for cuts, because these witches use blood to do their magic. So if they have, like, I think they call them spell marks or something on them, they'll see like a bunch of scars on these women because they have to cut themselves to do their magic. So Rune is a witch. She has to find a way around that so that she can't be discovered, and she's known as basically a helper to this government system that's trying to remove the witches. They don't know that she's a witch. She's actually helped them find witches, but in the background she's working as the Crimson Moth. And then we have Gideon, who is like the most notorious, deadliest, meanest witch hunter. So obviously that's the romance, but he's very closed off. He doesn't like to like socialize. He doesn't like to deal with people, and they're both trying to use each other for their own benefit, and we know that, but they don't know that about each other. So it's getting interesting because, you know, they're both trying to woo each other for different reasons at the same time, and I'm kind of interested to see how it's gonna go. I've heard great things about this book, but I don't know what's gonna happen. I think this is gonna be a series. I think there's at least another book. I'm very excited, and I'm hoping this keeps me from slumping out from my last video, which, if you saw that vlog, that was a lot of reading over a weekend for me. So hoping that starting with this keeps me from slumping, and since I am reading it, it goes into sport mode and we get rid of the cover. So this is the book I'm starting with. The second book I'll be reading this week is A Face Like Glass, which a follower actually told me they looked up, and it is a middle grade fantasy-esque mystery book. I don't know too much about it. I don't want to know too much about it. She did explain a little bit, but there are like different, I don't know if they're all related, but there are like other books listed on the back. As soon as I start reading this and figure out what it's about, I'll give you a synopsis based on what I'm reading. This is the first time I'm going to read this author, and all I know is that it's a middle grade novel. Third book I'm going to read is the first book in the Six of Crows duology, which is Six of Crows. This takes place in Leigh Bardugo's Grishaverse. I have read Shadow and Bone. I have read the trilogy. This is next in that series, and this is about a heist with, I think, like 6 friends. That's all I really know. Kaz is offered a chance at a deadly heist that could make him rich beyond his wildest dreams, but he can't pull it off alone. And then it lists all the other characters. I've heard great things about this duology. I've heard that people don't like the Shadow and Bone trilogy, but they love this duology. I enjoy the Shadow and Bone trilogy. Was it my favorite? No, but it was still very enjoyable. I liked the world. I liked the characters. So I'm hoping I love Six of Crows, and then as well Crooked Kingdom, which is next in this duology, next and last. Very, very excited for this one. The writing in this book is very tiny though, so oops, that page is blank. But yeah, not looking forward to that, but looking forward to the book in general. And the last book I'm going to pick up this week is Serpent and Dove by Shelby Mahurin. This is another witch and witch hunter fantasy romance. So the back just says, a witch and witch hunter bound in holy matrimony. There was only one way such a story could end, a stake in a match. And I've heard really good things about this series as well. I've heard people actually have mixed reviews, so I'm looking forward to it. I think this will be something that I like. I think it'll be right up my alley. We'll see. Sarah J. Maas is blurbed on the front, so it's gotta be good, right? If Miss Sarah Janet is saying it is, so I'm very excited for this one, and this will end the week. Like I said, I've already started The Heartless Hunter, and I gotta do some stuff. I gotta edit some videos, and then I will pick up that book before bed tonight and may give an update, may not. We'll see what happens and how many pages I'm able to read. So if not, I will see you guys tomorrow. So I'm going to do an update before I go to bed because I did get a decent amount read. I'm on page like 180 right now, so just under halfway through the book. It's only like 400 pages, and it is so good. Like the forbidden romance in this, and there's like a little bit of a love triangle. It's perfect. I am loving this book so far, and I hope it continues in the way that it's going. This is like true enemies to lovers because they truly hate each other, but they also have these like underlying feelings that they're trying to like ignore and be like, it doesn't matter because I hate her, I hate him. It shouldn't matter that I have feelings, but it is perfection so far. So hopefully the second half of the book is just as good as this half, and I'm hoping that I can get through this tomorrow because I feel like I'm just going to devour the second half of this. I will update you when I'm home from work. This may be too soon. I've got about 120 pages left of Heartless Hunter. I am getting 5-star vibes from this book. I freaking love it. I can't stop thinking about it when I put it down. I just want to pick it back up and read it. I can't right now because I'm doing like 6 things, but I will finish this probably tonight because I'm not going to go to bed until I know how this book ends. I also fear that it's going to end on a cliffhanger because it's going to be part of a series. So that's going to be disappointing. But the romance in this book, and I have no idea what's going on because there's like an underlying story. Like you have Gideon and you have Rune, but they're trying to like woo each other for devious reasons because she's trying to get information from him because she's the Crimson Moth and he thinks she's the Crimson Moth or is in like cahoots with the Crimson Moth. So he's trying to get information or like catch her red-handed there. But obviously like they're starting to catch real feelings. There's also this underlying story that's going on that's not talked too much about. And we know that it's not Rune. We know it's not her. But I'm like, it just keeps getting mentioned enough that I'm like, this is gonna be a big part of this book. And I don't know what it's gonna do. So that could make or break the book if I really hate what the twist is, or if it's not revealed in this, that might be fine. But I'm getting such high 5-star feelings for this book, which would only be my third 5-star this year. And I've read a lot of books this year. This is my like 64th book, and I've had 2 5-stars. I hope I did not just jinx this. So I'm gonna finish this. Then I'm gonna give you my final feelings. I may not rate it tonight if I'm on the fence, but if it continues the way it is right now, it's gonna be a 5-star. I will be back in some time. For you, it'll be a few seconds. For me, it'll be about 2 hours. So see you then. I don't know what to say about it, but I love that book. I was crying a little at the end, so I'm trying to get my emotions in check, but I cannot wait for the next book in this series. And I don't know when it's coming out, and I'm sad that I don't know when it's coming out. But this book was like perfect. The angst, the surprise at the end that you kind of see coming, but you don't fully see coming, still gets you. Wow. That was one of the best books I read in a long time. And I may be over-exaggerating, but it did something to me. So, right now it's sitting at a 5-star. I'm going to sleep on it, but I don't think it's going to change. So, good way to start the vlog. Not a good way to end my night, because literally I was trying to not just cry my eyes out. So, Heartless Hunter, Kristen Cicerelli, read this book. Crimson Moth, if you're not in the US, read this book. That's all I have to say. This is the next book I'm going to read, A Face Like Glass by Frances Hardinge. I'm trying to look at what it's about because I don't really know. It has like it's not been rated a lot, but it has pretty good. So it's an enchanting underground world that hides sinister secrets. It's a YA. In the underground city of Cavarna, the world's most skilled craftspeople toil in the darkness to create delicacies beyond compare, wines that remove memories, cheeses that make you hallucinate, and perfumes that convince you to trust the wearer, even as he slits your throat. On the surface, the people seem ordinary except for one thing: their faces are as blank as untouched snow. Expressions may be learned, and only the famous face smiths can teach a person to express or fake joy, despair, or fear at a steep price. Into this dark and distressful world comes Neverfell, a girl with no memory of her past and a face so terrifying to those around her that she must wear a mask at all times. Neverfell's expressions are as varied and dynamic as those of the most skilled face-smiths, except hers are entirely genuine, and that makes her very dangerous. So, not what I was expecting at all, but it has like a 4.2 on Goodreads and a 4.5 on Amazon. Granted, it has not been like rated a lot, but it sounds interesting. So, this is the next book I'm going to go into. It is a fantasy, because I was a little worried after putting it in a fantasy blog that it wasn't, but it is a fantasy fiction, adventure fiction. So, we'll see how I feel about this one. Probably won't talk to you guys again until tomorrow, but starting off real good with this vlog, so I've got high hopes for the next 3 books. Happy Wednesday. I'm gonna do my best to explain this book from where I am right now. I'm just 100 pages in, because it's very confusing. This world, the people in this world don't have like normal facial expressions like with humans. When you feel an emotion, it's usually on your face, right? Well, they have to like learn different faces to use, and they have them like numbered, and if you're higher up in society, you learn more faces than the people in lower society because they don't need as many different facial expressions. And then this girl, Neverfell, weird name, but that's her name, is found by this guy who's like a master cheesemaker when she's a little kid because she's stealing food from him, so he finds her like in the tunnels below his shop where he makes cheese, whatever. She's, from what I'm guessing, just normal to like what we would consider normal, so her facial expressions like change and her face is not what they're used to seeing. He keeps her hidden. She has to wear a mask for her whole life because something's happening that I'm not sure I've gotten to yet, but like people like her are known to her, that world, but they're considered like the enemies. I don't know. We'll see. She gets caught basically and has to move away from that guy and into another household, and that's kind of where I am. So, still kind of trying to figure this one out. It's interesting now, like now I'd say past like 20 pages or so, I've really, like the story's picked up. The first 80 pages or so was really hard to get through. It's picking up now, so I think I'll enjoy it more now that the story isn't just her stuck in this cheese factory with this grumpy old man. I will check in maybe later tonight, if not tomorrow when I get home from work, so see you then. So I'm now 180 pages in, so I've read like 80 pages since we've talked. And this book is just like chaos. That's the only way I can think to describe it. This world that they're living in is like the underworld, because they call the normal world like the overground or something. So they're living underground, which makes sense now because they keep talking about tunnels and caves and stuff like that. And they like imbue magic into their food and stuff. So like wine can make you tell secrets, or like can suppress memories or bring back memories that have been suppressed. And I don't know what the cheese does, but they like put stuff in like cheese because she was with that cheesemaker at the beginning. And Girlfriend's just being passed around to like all these different people. So there's a lot going on, and I'm interested because there's a lot going on, but it's just like, it's reading like a lot of chaos. It's almost like a train wreck. I can't stop, but I'm also not really sure 100% what's going on. I'm enjoying it enough to continue it, but I'm very confused. I don't know like what the point of the book is yet. So I'm hoping it'll come to light. I'm gonna read a little more probably before I go to sleep, a little later, but that's where I am right now. I'll update when I'm done, when I'm home tomorrow night. And hopefully by then, maybe things are a little clearer. So I got like 8 pages read at work today, but I did read a bit last night. We're now into the part of the story where like the background story that I said was going on is merging with the story of Neverfell. It's getting like more high stakes, I'd say, at this point, and like you're learning more and more about the world, and you're learning more and more about this character that's been talked about in the background for a lot of the book. Still don't know what the point of the book is, so I'm hoping that becomes, again, more apparent, or I figure it out by the end. But I'm over halfway through, but just over halfway through, so I'm gonna stay up and read this tonight as much as I can before I get too tired and fall asleep. And hopefully I finish this up tomorrow, but I'm kind of like lukewarm on the book in general. Like, I'm not itching to pick it back up when I go to read it, but I'm not so disinterested that I'm not continuing it. Again, the whole concept's kind of confusing and chaotic, but hopefully by the time I give you the next update, I will be almost done or done, and I will have a better opinion. So it is now Friday evening. I finished A Face Like Glass by Frances Hardinge today. And I'm going to try my best to explain this book without spoiling it and hopefully without confusing anybody, because now that I have finished it, I kind of understand it a little bit better. And I don't know what that says about the book. It literally took the whole book for me to understand what was happening. We have this girl named Neverfell. She's found when she's a young girl by this guy that's a cheesemaker. And this land that they live in is called Kavarna or something like that. And it's basically like this cave world that's underneath the world. She's found by this guy who is like this master cheesemaker, because they have like their food and stuff has like special qualities, so it can like, it has magical qualities, and it depends on what you're eating and what you're drinking or whatever and how it's made that has these qualities. That's not super important. She's found by this guy and he hides her, like he makes her wear a mask all the time because her face is just like a normal face, like she reacts to things and her face changes. But in this world, like you have to learn a face in order to wear the face. So they have like tragedy faces, happy faces, sad faces, and depending on your rank in society, that's how many faces you have. So there's this like area of their world that's like the slums essentially, and they work to keep the rest of the place going. And these people are only shown like happy faces because they don't want like the kids growing up there to be sad and think that they're not doing something that's fun. So it's like, you know, the powers that be are trying to like convince the people that are born into that area that they're happy when they're really not. So there's this like Grand Supreme guy. I don't remember exactly what he was called. He's like in charge of this, and he's like super weird because he doesn't sleep. Like half of his brain sleeps at one time and half of the brain like while the other half's active, and then it like switches. Don't want to get too much into that because it's not super important, but there's this guy, and then there's these families that are like elite based on what they make and if they're like a master craftsman or not. And basically, Neverfell is just trying to find out who she is and where she came from because she can't remember anything before she was found. And she knows she's different, so she's trying to figure out like where she came from and why she's there and why she doesn't remember anything and who her parents are and all that crap. So this story is her discovering that and kind of unraveling all of the backwards ways that this world is operating and figuring out like there's like there's a scheme that's going on in the background that she has to like figure out. So it really took to like the last 100 pages for me to fully understand what was happening. And even then it was really confusing. This whole book was kind of just like, so this whole book just felt like this weird fever dream because I wasn't ever really sure what's going on, and the way that the author talked about the world and what was happening and the faces and everything, like it was just hard for my brain to wrap around what was going on until the end, and now I think I kind of get it. Yeah, it's basically just this adventure of this girl named Neverfell in this weird world, and half the book was me just trying to understand this world and what the purpose of it was and understand what the actual purpose of the book was. But it was interesting. Obviously, I didn't like DNF it because I was really like determined to figure out what was going on. I gave this like a 3.25 because I could see that people might like this because it was kind of a mystery fantasy vibe. But I was just too confused for most of the book to give it anything higher than that. So for it being a I think this is considered middle grade. For it being like for that young of people, I was surprised at how confusing it was. But finally done with this one. The next book I'm going to read is Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo. I'm very excited about this book. It is a heist with like 6 friends, I think. I don't know exactly how many people are in here. That occurs in the same world as the Shadow and Bone trilogy, which is the Grishaverse. And I don't know much about it. And there's 6 friends. So a convict, a sharpshooter, a runaway, a spy, a heartrender, and a thief. Yeah, so Kaz is like, I guess, the main character, and he's offered a chance at a deadly heist that could make him rich beyond his wildest dreams, but he can't do it alone. So that's where the other friends come in. I'm so excited for this book. I've heard great things about this duology in comparison to like the Shadow and Bone trilogy, which I did enjoy, but wasn't my favorite. So I'm hoping that this is a high-rated book for me, and that would be great if I got 2 in this video, because I've already had a 5-star. I don't know that this will be 5-star, but it may be close. So gonna start this tonight, probably a little bit later because I have other things to do, but I am gonna start this today, and I will hopefully bring an update to you still today, but I don't know how much I'll be through by then. So talk to you guys when I've read a little bit of this. So I'm only like 30 pages into this, but so far we're just like meeting our characters. There were 2 scenes. The first 2 chapters were like 2 different groups of people. The first chapter had to do with like this guy that is a recent guard to like an ambassador, I think. And the ambassador owns like some Grisha, and he sees something happen with the ambassador and like an experiment he's running on the Grisha. So it was him and then like a few of the other guards, and then obviously like the Grisha that he was watching the test, the experiment happened to, and then another one that he talked to. And then we have the second chapter was Kaz's people, and I've been like waiting to meet Kaz because I hear people talk about him, about this book all the time. And he's like the leader of one of the gangs. I think the Dregs is what they're called. And then there's another gang that's the Black something. I think I'd remember this. Black Tips. And they're like rival gangs in the same area, and they're having like, I think they call it like a parlay, which is basically just like an argument without weapons. So you get to meet Kaz and like his crew. And I want to say that at least, I'm going to assume like Kaz, Jasper, and Inej, I think is how you say her name. I-N-E-G. No, I-N-E-J, Inej. You meet those three characters. And I have a feeling they might be part of like the heist. So, yeah. So a spy known as the Wraith, which is on the back, that is Inej. A thief with a gift for unlikely escapes, I believe, is Kaz. And maybe the sharpshooter is Jasper, because I think they said something about him like being really good with a gun, but he didn't have one in that chapter because he couldn't use it. I don't know who the convict, the runaway, and the heartrender are yet. I think I've met some of our characters. I don't know who the other ones are yet, but I can already tell I'm gonna love this book. I can just tell. The first two chapters like flew by, and they're long. They are long chapters though, that I'm not a fan of. I didn't feel like I was reading long chapters, so that's a good sign. I'm gonna continue reading this for a little bit until I am too tired to keep my eyes open. So hopefully I get at least a little bit more of this read tonight, and then tomorrow morning I'm gonna continue reading it. And then I don't know how much reading I'm gonna get done tomorrow because we're going to the ballet, which I'm very excited about. So that's gonna eat up a good chunk of my day, but that's okay. I will check back in tomorrow after I read some tonight and a little bit tomorrow morning before I head out for the afternoon. Okay, so happy Saturday. It's like mid-morning now. I'm at the end of the second section. So this book is broken out into 6 sections, and I just finished the second one, and I'm into the one called Heartsick now, which means something we already kind of know what it means. So I'm anticipating what's going to happen in this next section because of that, but I am loving this book. Like, it's going so fast. Like, I'm not reading it super fast, but it feels like it's going fast. We've got our 6 heist members now, and we know what the heist is and their en route at this point to the heist. I'm wondering too if there's going to be a little bit of romance in here. I wasn't expecting that because in Shadow and Bone, like, there was romance, but it was not the main point of the books. I wasn't expecting it in this one. I thought this one was really going to just be more like high fantasy. A group of misfits goes on a heist, more violence, more high stakes, kind of stuff like that. But it seems like there may be a little romance, which is always good. It's a little break from the harshness of some books. I don't know. I don't know what else to say other than I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying the story and how it's progressing and the characters, and the more we're learning about them and their connections and their history and how they got to where they are now and why they are the way they are now. So I'm loving it. I'm not going to predict a rating yet because it's a little too soon, but things are looking good. I'm going to keep reading for a little bit this morning, and then I got to stop and get ready to go to the ballet. I may update once before I leave, depending on how much further I get. If not, I'll talk to you guys tonight. So we're back from the ballet. It took longer than I thought, so it's a little bit later than I was expecting to get back, and I have just over 200 pages left in this book, and I'm hoping to finish this tonight just because it is like a quick read. It has been reading quickly for me. We're into the heist now, so we're at the point in the book where they're at the place they need to do the heist, but that hasn't happened yet. So the next 200 pages I think are going to be very fast, very action-packed, so that's probably why this will get finished tonight. And then tomorrow I'll start the final book and hopefully finish it because it's Sunday and I only gave myself a week for this vlog. Stay tuned. I will update when I'm done and we'll go into the last book. Happy Sunday. So I had like 40 some pages left last night when I fell asleep to finish of Six of Crows, but I am done now. And this book was so good. The ending and the fact that like I just want to pick up Crooked Kingdom now, but I need to read the other books on my TBR first. The ending was like the perfect cliffhanger because it closed this story out, but still there was still enough left open that I know Crooked Kingdom is going to be probably phenomenal. That being said, I'm probably going to rate this around a 4.5 to a 4.75. It was so close to being a 5-star, but in my mind, I have a feeling Crooked Kingdom is going to be. So I can't, if I like Crooked Kingdom more, I can't justify giving them both a 5-star, but this was so close. Part of it also might be the fact that I just had a 5-star read and this was not quite there. So close, but not quite to the feelings that that book gave me. So still fantastic. I will probably end up giving it a 5-star on Goodreads just because I can't give it a half-star and it's closer to a 5-star than a 4-star in my opinion. So, but I still track it on my own. But so good. Cannot wait to go into Crooked Kingdom. Will probably try to prioritize that this month if I get through the rest of my TBR, which I should, and I have vacation for a week this month, so I will probably get a lot of reading done at that point. So the next book I have is Serpent and Dove by Shelby Mahurin. This is the first book in the Serpent and Dove trilogy, and it is a witch hunter and witch forced marriage story, I believe. I'm assuming it's like forced or arranged. I've heard mixed reviews on this series as a whole, but after I just had a witch and witch hunter 5-star read, I'm kind of really interested in getting into starting this, but I'll also probably be comparing it to that book in my mind the whole time, so it could go either way. However, we'll find out once I start this, and it's a hardback, so that means this will be coming off. Reading mode. I will begin this and then touch base once I've gotten far enough to know what's happening. First update, I'm about 200 pages in, a little under 200 pages in, and it's not sure how I feel about it yet. I hate that I read Heartless Hunter so recently because I know I'm comparing these books in my head, and that's not fair to this book. This is a true enemies to lovers romance as well, which I love. I hate when it's like enemies to lovers and then 3 chapters in, they're already all over each other. Not this one. It is YA though, so I'm assuming it's not gonna get super spicy. However, right now, I don't really know where the story is. I mean, there was like a heist that happened at the beginning, and what do they call them? Chasseurs, who are the witch hunters in this book, are on to they know that at least a witch was involved in this heist, and they're investigating it and questioning people that were involved in it. So that's where we are with that. And things have happened because of that, but I don't want to give too much away. I am liking that it's true enemies, like they hate each other. So I think that always makes an enemies to lovers so much more satisfying when like you can tell that at the beginning they truly do hate each other. And there's not just like this little animosity or like they're supposed to hate them. They can't stand each other. That's a good sign. I'm hoping it picks up a little more. It's kind of repetitive right now, so I'm hoping like the end of the book picks up a bit. I will read more and update later. Okay, so I just finished Serpent and Dove, but I figured I would just wrap this up and not talk about it twice so closely together. So this ends the Fantasy for a Week vlog. So I picked 4 books in my TBR that were fantasy, and I read them all this week. And I started with Heartless Hunter by Kristen Cicerelli. This was my 3rd 5-star read of the year. I freaking love this book. It is a witch hunter, witch romance done in a very unique way, I think, because of the storyline and how it all like ties together and the witch story behind it and everything. So highly, highly, highly recommend this book. I loved it. Great fantasy romance. I can't say anything else about it. I talked about this book enough already, so 5-star read. Then next I read A Face Like Glass by Frances Hardinge. And this was like a YA mystery, fantasy, dystopian kind of thing where we follow Neverfell, who was like abandoned at birth and was trying to figure out the secrets of the land that she lived in and where she came from, all that kind of stuff. So we kind of see her get passed around from family to family, and she uncovers a little bit more every time she goes to a new place. And then she figures everything out. And then we just kind of watch the story unfold from there. This was interesting, kind of chaotic, a little difficult to follow at times, but still enjoyable. I obviously was intrigued enough to continue reading it. I didn't really ever think about DNFing it. I just got a little confused a few times. So I gave this a 3.25. Next, I read Six of Crows, which is the first in a duology that comes after the Shadow and Bone trilogy. It takes place in the Grishaverse, just like Shadow and Bone, and it follows 6 misfits on a heist that will basically make them super rich. So first we get like an overview of what's happening in the world at this time, and then we start to meet the characters little by little. The group is assembled, the purpose of the heist becomes clear, and then we kind of just follow them throughout figuring out how to pull off this super dangerous heist. Fantastic ending. I mean, it was a cliffhanger, but I have the second book, so it's fine. And I really want to go right into that second one, but I'm going to have to finish a few other books before I do that. Maybe I'll get to it this month. Maybe it'll be a next month priority. We'll see. This was a 4.75. So close to being a 5-star. And finally, I finished with Serpent and Dove by Shelby Mahurin. This is the first in a trilogy, and this is also a witch and a witch hunter romance. Vastly different from what we see in The Heartless Hunter. The whole story is very much different, and their interactions and how they met and what each knows about the other, very different in this versus Heartless Hunter. So I enjoyed this too. I gave this a 4.25. It started off a little slow, but the ending picked up really fast, and I just like could not put the book down once I hit halfway. So very much enjoyed this, hoping, I don't have the other 2 books yet, but I'm hoping to get them and read them at some point this year. So I'm not gonna like immediately go out and buy the next one, but I'm gonna try to get to it sooner rather than later so that I don't forget what happened in this one. The romance was again kind of a slow burn, which is similar to what we followed in Heartless Hunter. It was a true enemies to lovers because you did see how much they hated each other at the beginning and why and all of that. So again, very good. I've heard that maybe the second one isn't as good as this one, but I'll find out for myself once I pick it up. So that was it. I think this was a fantastic reading week. I had 1 5-star, 2 4 and up, and then one that was, while enjoyable, not my absolute favorite book, but I would still recommend. We didn't really have any duds this time, which is kind of great. I feel like there's been a few times this year where I don't want to say forced myself to finish a book, but have gotten so far in it that I've just finished it regardless. So that's it for this one, and I will hopefully see you all in the next video.